Hi everyone, it's Heidi again. Today we are reacting to Geography Now. It has been a while, but we're reacting to the Iraq episode. I kind of stopped reacting to Geography Now for a few different reasons, but I never took this one off my list because I couldn't let it go. I am actually so curious about, I say Iraq, but it's Iraq. Right. I know that us Americans say Iran and Iraq, and I'm trying to switch that. I'm trying not to say it in that accent anymore because to me it does sound kind of silly. I know that I've learned a bit about Iran now, and I mean we're in a conflict with Iran. I know that Iran is mostly Muslim. Is Iraq also mostly Muslim? I actually don't know. We were in a war with them for about 20 years, and then we just pulled out willy-nilly, and that did not go over well. Otherwise, I'm not really familiar with the history. I'm not familiar with the customs or the culture. I just know the stereotypes here in the US. So as always, let me know if anything in this video has since updated. This was recorded it was posted 8 years ago. And so I'm sure that there are things that are different or updated. And then let me know if I maybe misunderstood something or if I need information about something. Please, I'm watching this with you guys so that we can start a conversation about it so I can learn more outside of this video as well. If you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe, become a member if you want me to prioritize your comments, and let's do this.
Guys, let's be honest. When I say Iraq, all you think of is...
That's all we talk about over here.
But it's also...
Okay.
So, where do we go from there? Let's find out.
Very interesting.
It's time to learn geography.
No!
Hey everybody, I'm
it's
your
been
host
a
Bobby.
while.
We live in a generation that has almost never known a time in which Iraq wasn't synonymous with war. But the funny thing is, it was like the Dubai of the 60s. Tourists were flocking in, people had mansions, it was crazy. So what happened? Well, first we have to explain where Iraq is. Moving on.
Okay.
One thing that makes Iraq such a pivotal player in geopolitical strife is its incredibly blessed yet cursed location. Let's explain. Iraq is located in the Middle East, bordered by 6 other countries, and don't forget they have a very, very small narrow coast on the Persian Gulf with their southernmost port Qasr on the Khawar al-Zubair waterway, which by the way, they used to have an airport, but it literally got spliced in half by the Kuwaiti border.
You said Persian Gulf, isn't it Arabian Gulf?
Didn't we literally just go over this in the last episode? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm sticking with history, and history says Persian. The country is divided into 19 governments or provinces, with the capital Baghdad, the second largest city in the Arab world after Cairo, located in the heart of the historic Tigris River Valley, and with nearly 50,000 people per square kilometer, the city makes the most dense country subdivision in the world. After the obvious Baghdad, the next largest cities in the country are Basra in the south and Hilla in the fertile Euphrates region, and the largest airports are Baghdad, Basra, and Erbil International. And yes, you can still fly to Iraq and visit. It's not like the whole country is completely closed off. They keep moving forward despite the war.
Wait, really?
Yep, although it's highly advised that you stay in the large cities and don't make a spectacle of yourself, be respectful to the people, and you'll be fine, just like anywhere else.
But there's terrorists.
We'll discuss that in a bit. Now, keep in mind, these borders were pretty much a product of post-UK colonialism from when Winston Churchill kind of helped establish what the Iraqis like to call an artificial monarchy. We'll talk more about that later, too.
You keep making me wait for stuff.
I know, just hold on. Now, here's where things get a little confusing. Taking the governance out of the picture, there's kind of technically another way you could split up the regions of Iraq based off of prevalent people groups. After war times, ethno-linguistic and religious people groups started to kind of segregate themselves into 3 distinct areas. The south, which is where the majority of the Shias live, the middle, which is where most of the minority Sunnis live, and the north, where most of the Kurds live, amongst other groups like Assyrians, Yazidis, Lurs, and so on. Now here's the strange part. These 3 governorates in the north, Erbil, Dohuk, and Sulaimania, make up the region of Iraqi Kurdistan, which is an incredibly autonomous zone from the rest of the country, where the majority of Kurds live. They have their own government, prime minister, and quasi-army, which means the Iraqi army has no access to this area. If you don't know anything about the Kurds, basically they are one of the largest minority groups in the Middle East, but we'll talk about that another time. Let's move on. Now, let's just get it over with and cover what you're all thinking. Yes, there are some parts of Iraq that are kind of like no-go zones, specifically in the west and central areas. As of 2017, numerous international travel boards have advised strongly against travel in the red zone, which is located more or less over here, where most of the conflict between ISIS, there you go, and various other groups are found. Keep in mind, this information is applicable to the time this video was uploaded, so I don't know what the future holds or if this video would be outdated soon. It looks like tension and conflict are dying down, but for now, we can't be completely sure. Otherwise, some top notable notable sites in Iraq might include places like Eridu and Uruk, two of the oldest cities in the world. Ur, the home of Abraham and the Sumerian ziggurat. The Al-Shahid Monument, the Tree of Knowledge. The Mudif houses of the Marsh Arabs. The ruins of former Babylon in Hilla. Alexander the Great's tomb. Ctesiphon, the ancient capital of Persia. Lalesh, which is like the holiest site to the Yazidis. Nineveh, the ancient capital of the Assyrian Empire. The Al-Najaf Cemetery, the largest in the world.
Wow. This was a good place to stop because I wanted to look at this a little bit longer. That is freaking huge. That is insane. That is an entire city of dead people. Just crazy. I don't know. Are there movies about that? That would be a really good zombie movie location. But I also want to say I've had people talk about how often I yawn. Two things. One, I'm a mom of a year and a half year old. And so yes, I am just tired all the time. It doesn't mean I'm not interested. And the other thing that I've heard before, and I don't know if this is true, is that sometimes when you're taking in a lot of information, like I don't know shit about this. And so it's a lot. It's kind of like a fire hose. And I heard that that can make you yawn. I don't know if that's true, but it makes me feel better about it. I just want to put that out there. Not that most of you care at all, but just thanks for letting me give my little disclaimer. But yeah, this is fascinating. I love that he is really trying to focus on the good about Iraq. He'll be like, and also ISIS, you know? Yeah, we all know about that. Anyway, let's focus on some things that we might not know about, which I kind of love. Not that ISIS is something to look over or just ignore or forget about, but I'm sure that there are a lot of people in Iraq who don't agree with ISIS. I think that that's the case in most, if not every, country with a really not ecstatic extremist group. There are also people who are probably a little more normal, being like, oh guys, you're embarrassing us. Like he said, moving on.
Baghdad Zoo. Yes, they have a zoo. The Victory Arches of Qadisiyah, the shopping districts of Al-Mansur and Al-Qarada, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, the Abbasid Mosque of Samarra, the Iraqi National Museum.
Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, I'm really interested in. So if anybody has information about that, let me know. Actually, I might look it up really quickly. This is not in the right place. I don't care about the United States. Just kidding. The Monument of the Unknown Soldier in Baghdad, Iraq is a major landmark in the Green Zone design. Green Zone is at the top. Wait, no, Green Zone is in like the southish east, right? I'm trying to remember the colors, oh dear. If that's even what they're talking about. Designed by Khalid al-Rahal and inaugurated in 1982 to honor Iran-Iraq War martyrs. Oh, that's lovely. I thought that it was maybe about one person. That's a nice thing to have. That's heartbreaking, but we do what we can, I guess. Anyway, moving on.
And if you can get access, you can see a 605-page Quran written entirely out of the blood of Saddam Hussein. Yeah, that was an interesting time in their history. It's a sad truth, but the fact is, Iraq is probably the most beautifully historic region on the planet with the worst of circumstances. Baghdad was the epicenter of science and mathematics for a period of time. They were rich, they were glorious, they were on fire. But then the 20th century came along and hit them like a sack of bricks. And a lot of it had to do with what Iraq had hidden underneath its sands, which brings us to... Now, when you look at a satellite image of Iraq, you'll notice that a lot of it is beige and sandy colored, but then you get this big cluster of green and blue. This whole area is like the lifeblood of Iraq. You might have heard of Mesopotamia or the Fertile Crescent, right? Yep, that's Iraq. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers are the most important resources to the entire country, converging into the Shatt al-Arab River in the south that eventually dumps into the Persian Gulf. About 75% of the entire country lives in between these two rivers. Composition-wise, Iraq is made up of 4 main geographical regions: the dry deserts in the west and southwest, the fertile alluvial plains by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the uplands to the north, and the highlands and the mountains in the far north and northeast. The highest point in the country at 3,600 meters doesn't have an official name, but it's known locally as Chikadar, which means black tent. Now, Iraq's climate is pretty dry, as they only get about 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters of...
See, that is exactly what a lot of Americans imagine when they think of Iraq. It's just this desert and freaking nothing. And soldiers, you know? Oh dear. So I'm really glad we're watching this.
Rain every year. However, the mountains can get lots of snow, which melts rapidly, and in the past has caused a lot of flood problems. So what did they do? They built a ton of dams, which in return created a ton of artificial lakes and reservoirs, the largest one being the Tartar. They got lucky with Tartar because over time it developed an actual biosphere containing animals, plants, and fish, whereas most of the other lakes weren't so lucky because, you know, when you try to make a lake in a desert, yeah, you're gonna get a lot of salt and silt that nothing can live off of. Otherwise, lakes Lake Habanilla has a strange blood-red coast mostly made up of algae. Anyway, due to the Mediterranean wind fronts that constantly push from the west, Iraq is subject to the shamal, or the northwest wind, which creates some of the worst sand and dust storms imaginable. If you survive, drink some water and brag on social media. Otherwise, the fertile valleys do allow them to grow and provide their populace with some of the typical Middle Eastern crops like rice and lentils and dates and so on. Some national dishes include things like Baghdadi dolma, Moslawi kuba, bacha, masgouf, Iraqi sambosas, and klecha. Nonetheless, almost 100% of Iraq's entire export sector is made up of oil and petroleum. Iraq has the third largest oil reserves in the Middle East after Saudi Arabia and Iran. You would think this would make them incredibly rich, and at one point it kind of did. However, over time, things kind of changed, and in order to understand that, you kind of have to know some history, which brings us to the most controversial part of this entire episode.
This is pretty similar to Iran's story.
At this point, Iraqis have heard it all. War, Saddam, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, they get it. And we will get to that. I'm not going to sugarcoat this episode and avoid the drama, but I also want you to learn that Iraq has a completely unnoticed, vibrant culture and heritage that still thrives despite all the chaos. First of all, Iraq has a population of about 38 million and is home to the oldest recorded civilizations on Earth. About 75% of the country is made up of Arabs, about 15% are Kurds, and the remainder is made up of numerous smaller people groups like Assyrians, Turkmenis, and Yazidis, and Shabaks. They also use the Iraqi dinar as their currency. They use the type CDG plug outlets, and they drive on the right side of the road. The interesting thing about Iraq is that outside of Iran, it is one of the only few countries that has a Shia majority population at about 65%. Sunnis make up only about a quarter of the population, and the rest are mostly Christians and Yazidis. In fact, two of the holiest sites in Shia Islam, apart from Mecca and Medina, can be found in the city of Karbala. The Imam Ali Mosque, believed to be the burial site of the Shia prophet Ali, and the Imam Hussein Shrine, where the grandson martyr of Muhammad is buried. Nonetheless, Iraq is deeply rooted in a historical foundation that pretty much topples most other countries. They developed the first writing system that we know of, the Wedgie cuneiform script on clay tablets. After them, in the quickest way I can put it, the rest of the history kind of goes like this. Akkadians, and then, oh hey, Abraham, the father of all Abrahamic religions, comes out of the city of Ur. Assyrians, Canaanites, Babylonians, Hammurabi, Hittites, Neo-Assyrian Empire, Neo-Babylonian Empire, King Nebuchadnezzar II, Persians come in, Cyrus the Great crushes them, then Alexander the Great crushes Persia, Parthians take a quick shot, but then quickly are crushed by the Romans. Christianity comes in mostly to the Assyrians. Middle Ages, Muslims come in and dominate by conquest. The Rashidun, Umayyad, and Abbasid caliphates. The Islamic Golden Age begins. The Mongols come in and slaughter a ton of people. Black Death spreads. The Ottomans come in. Then the Brits come in during World War I. They concoct an Iraqi monarchy. Then there was a war, a coup, July Revolution by the Ba'athist Party, more coup d'etats. Saddam Hussein comes into power in 1979. Backed up by the US and Russia, he fights against Iran after the Islamic Revolution. He then attacks his own people and then tries to invade and attack Kuwait. The US cuts ties and attacks Saddam after the war sanctions were put.
Sorry, I love that he says backed by the US because that is something that I've just been learning about really recently, and it is something that you should not overlook. It's just, that story is so freaking crazy, and it's something that I hadn't really heard of much before this YouTube channel, so crazy. Anyway.
Then in 2003, the US and allies come in under the pretext of weapons of mass destruction programs violation under UN Resolution 687. Turns out there were no weapons of mass destruction, but they take out Saddam anyway. Then the weird years happen in which they're kind of like, yay, let's take down the statue of Saddam and celebrate, but oh crap, the Americans are intervening. Eventually the US withdraws in 2011 under Obama, but then an Al-Qaeda affiliate breaks off and creates a new group that pretty much hates everyone called ISIL, later ISIS. They attack and occupy various cities across the two countries. They get pretty big in 2015 and 16, but soon later they realize they have literally no diplomatic ties or outside relations, which are kind of key in conflict. After getting attacked from every side, from every nation around them and the Western world, they start to deteriorate, and that's kind of where we are today. Whew! Once again, keep in mind, this video might be outdated.
Oh, he's just about to say that it might be outdated, but I was just going to say that HailHeidi and I were talking about this the other day, and I think I mentioned this in one of my other videos, maybe, that we really are never in a war zone here in the US, unless it's people fighting each other. Social wars, riots, stuff like that do happen. But as far as bombings, like soldiers in the streets, tanks around, like we don't have that here. We just don't. I'm very grateful. That really is an extreme positive of living in the United States, that we don't see that side of war. We go away. We send our people out to war for sometimes no good reason, in my opinion, but our civilians and families get to be fairly safe here. So I do think that that's really amazing. Just going through Iraq's, like, who was coming in and trying to conquer and everything that was going on, That is so much. That's so much that can hinder you from really progressing in like technology, education, stuff like that. It's just really sad for people who just want to live a peaceful life, aren't religious fanatics, just want to be safe with their families. That is really heartbreaking for them. Just another reminder that I am very grateful in a lot of ways for the lifestyle that I grew up in and that I live still today. So, or not really lifestyle, but yeah, I guess just where I live is, it could be worse. You know, it could be better, but it could be worse.
It's soon, so until then, all we can do is observe and hope things get resolved. It's so complex, and if you want a full perspective, I'm not your best source. An Iraqi person directly affected by current events would be. Talk to them, listen to them. Furthermore, what it comes down to...
Any Iraqis in the comments section here on my channel, please feel free to share your opinions, your experiences about what's being talked about, what I've talked about. That's awesome. I might go through the comments in his video too, just to see if anybody gave their 2 cents about it. Anyway, here we go.
Iraq is sandwiched right between 2 of the biggest influencers in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia and Iran. Some sociologists would argue that it was inevitable that Iraq would become a tension ground one way or another solely based off of its precarious location. Now it's kind of stuck in a weird limbo zone of, okay, Saddam is gone, but insurgents are up and the Western world is getting involved and the whole western part of the country is off limits. What the? Can everybody just get out? I just want to go home and eat dinner and watch a movie. Granted, daily life does come with a tincture of constant alertness since you never know something could happen. And yes, many people have died at the hands of conflict. Many historical sites have been destroyed. But overall, Baghdad, Basra, Erbil, and most of the main metropolitan areas in the east still function somewhat normally. They have internet, they have operating hospitals and schools. They even have quite a few amusement parks with roller coasters and McDonald's and Pizza Hut joints. However, they also like to open up their own knockoff joints like Burger Friends and KFCK. Iraqis have gone through a...
The logo looks exactly the same. And then he said KFCK.
Open up their own knockoff joints like Burger Friends and KFCK. Iraqis have gone through a lot, but even then, they still know how to laugh and have fun. Like mentioned before, there are quite a few different people groups in Iraq. We mentioned the Kurds, which, by the way, Kurdish is an official language in addition to Arabic. But there's also the Assyrians, who claim to be descended from the ancient Assyrians, who make up the largest Christian population, as Jesus' apostles came in and preached the gospel to the area in the 1st century. They have their own writing system and traditions. There used to be a bunch of ancient Assyrian artifacts and sites until ISIS destroyed them in Mosul. Then you also have the Yazidis, who are kind of related to the Kurds, but they have their own secretive religion and customs as well. Handicrafts, rugs, and tea culture is huge. They love dancing whenever there's a break from all the drama. Some notable people from Iraq or of Iraqi descent might include people like Hammurabi, Abraham, Sargon of Akkad, Nebuchadnezzar II, Ashur Nasir Pal, Salah al-Din al-Ayubi, Saddam Hussein, although they might not be too proud of that, Khatem al-Saher, Mohammed Ghani Hikmat, the most accomplished female architect in the world, Zaha Hadid, Amo Baba, Leila al-Attar, Seta Hagopian, Maruf al-Rusafi. So that should give you a little insight on the people of Iraq. And boy, have they made a name for themselves on the international stage. Let's see how that works out for them.
Fascinating.
First of all, you have to understand that Iraq is kind of like another Bosnia and Herzegovina scenario in which different...
Hold on, did he just say Iraq?
International stage. Let's see how that works out for them. First of all, you have to understand that Iraq is kind of like another Bosnia and Herzegovina scenario in which...
Americans struggle so hard. I feel like we're trying to say Iraq, we're trying to say Iraq. Our pronunciation is so freaking ridiculous, but it's hard to break out of that habit when you've been saying it that way for so long. I wonder if he has that same story, because I grew up calling them Iraq. It sounds so dumb. Anyway.
Different people groups in the country have different relations with different countries within Iraq. And it kind of depends on who you ask. If you ask the Kurds and Assyrians in the north...
Did he say Iraq? I'm so sorry.
With different countries within Iraq. And it kind of depends...
He keeps saying Iraq, but I keep hearing Iraq. I don't know why. I'm so sorry. I'm tripping a little bit. Maybe it's because I'm just so used to hearing it. Just everybody says that, it seems. Here. Anyway.
Who you ask. If you ask the Kurds and Assyrians in the north, they might say Western countries like the US and UK. They even have a representative office in London. And the Assyrians love Armenia. They might also say that other regions that have high Kurdish populations like East Turkey and Western Iran might be friends, but not collectively Turkey and Iran as nations altogether. If you ask the Shias, they might say kind of Iran, even though there was a war back in the 80s, but it was more of like a Saddam thing. And they're both Shia. They both moved on. Plus, you know, the pilgrimage in Karbala. If you ask the Sunnis, it's tricky tricky. They've had some issues with Jordan and Saudi Arabia in the past, however, they really seem to like Egyptian and Yemeni people, but not their governments. Plus, they kind of support Turkey, which pisses off the Kurds. Now, every Iraqi person I've talked to has said that one country would most likely be their best friend, Syria. But again, the Syrian people, not the government.
Colors.
One thing that binds these two is that not only in modern times do they both hate struggling with conflict against radical Islamic terrorists, but historically, they've been linked for millennia. Diplomacy has been existent between these two through all variants of their countries throughout history, even before the rise of the caliphates, Persian, Babylonian, Assyrian empires. Syrians are seen as like their own people that they love and hold hands with in the midst of the storm. In conclusion, Iraq is home to so much of the beginning that is being crushed by the present, but is still alive and crawling into the future. Stay tuned. Ireland is coming up, and I am literally flying out our favorite Irish guy, Potter, to be here in the episode. That's not the correct pronunciation of his name, but I don't care. You're still named Potter to me.
Crawling into the future. So sad. It really is like, it's just unbelievable thinking about, I want to make sure that we get all of the credits in here. But I have a hard time focusing. Okay, there we go. It really is unbelievable to me with the way that I've grown up, how cushy my life has been, thinking about countries like this who literally are crawling and like just trying to have something about them other than war and just devastation. It's amazing how people can keep their heads up and hold on to some kind of culture when they have been through so much. It's really cool, and I really hope that Iraq like keeps getting out of that. I hope that ISIS and all of the things like that keep dwindling until they're gone, or until they just have no power whatsoever. I honestly don't know how things are exactly going in Iraq right now. You know what? It was Iran that we had a war with for 20 years and then pulled out. Oh my gosh, you know, this is actually one of the problems, is that I get Iraq and Iran so mixed up. From what I've watched about Iran and now about Iraq, that is really helping me to understand the difference. It's so ridiculous. But as far as anything before I started looking into this, I really have to admit that I probably get a lot mixed up still from past things, just because I did not understand the difference too much. I knew they were two different countries, but they seemed to work the same way. And in a lot of ways, they kind of do. So I honestly don't know how Iraq is doing now. If they still have major conflicts, if they're starting to thrive and starting to dig themselves out of all of their past, that would be interesting to figure out what's going on now. I just have not been in the loop. I mean, I'm not in the loop about almost anything, but I would like to know more. It's interesting because I don't think I've ever stopped to think about like, I wonder how Iraq is doing. Yeah, I hope they're doing okay over there. Like, it doesn't even cross my mind. It's terrible, but the more you learn, the more you realize that you don't know shit, or you realize how much you just have never thought about before. So anyway, I am still trying to put all the pieces together, trying to figure all of this out. Let me know what you guys think. Please give me your criticisms of how much I don't know. I don't care. I just am here to learn. But thank you guys so much for watching with me, especially if you've gotten this far into the video. I appreciate you being here. Let me know what else I should be watching on this channel. Thank you for the recommendation, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.